Huh, man, that subdy stuff is fun, isn't it? I thought of another way of explaining it. It's just, melting. If you had an actual ice cube and you melted it, that's what subd is kind of going to look like. Anyway, so let's move on. Hooray! Now, aside from our primitives, box, ball, capsules like a Tylenol, cone, disc, gears, gemstone, blah, 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 you have all these other tools for creating new objects. You have text, points, polygons, and curves. Let's start with points because it's sort of the basic foundational structure of everything that we're doing here. You can make points individually. Click, enter, point, click, enter. No, that's points. Click, enter. And from these points, click, enter. You can use these to actually build a polygon. However, unless you're in wireframe mode, you will not see them because points aren't anything. They are just coordinates. They aren't actually going to render. They aren't going to be seen or anything. They're nothing but points of data in the giant matrix coordinate field of the 3D world, and they're only going to show up in wireframe mode. When you select these points, and bear in mind, if I'm in polygon mode, I can't. Space over to point mode here. When I select these points, I have the ability to make a polygon out of them by hitting the P button, as in Pluto. And I've made a polygon. That will be visible in smooth shade mode because I actually made something just there. But the wireframe representation of points will be invisible. But there is actually a trick to this, and it's an important thing to know as we move forward. If I make a polygon a certain way, it will be broken. That's because Lightwave wants you to give it the parameters first. It doesn't want you to go, kind of cross. The way you draw a star wouldn't work very well in Lightwave. What you want to do is go around it. Clockwise or counterclockwise doesn't matter. It will affect which way the polygon faces, but you can solve that easily. You go in a circle and then hit P. If you didn't, you did this, basically what you're doing is telling it to draw the lines in the wrong order. But if you go, all right, draw a line from this one to this one to this one to this one and back again, it will work, and the other way won't. You just have to articulate which direction the polygon goes when you're making a polygon. Polygons are inherently one-sided, like a bad sitcom. You can only see them from this side, but not from that side. Now, there are ways to make the polygon double-sided. Again, we haven't gotten into the surface editor yet, but you can do that. But you can also just flip the direction that the polygon is facing with the F key. F will flip it. And now it's invisible from the top, but visible from the bottom, blah, blah, blah. I don't actually use the points tool that often because typically whatever you want to be doing with the points tool anyway, you can do with the pen tool under polygons. You just click, 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 and make a polygon. Now this I've overdone for the purposes of an example. In fact, let's be fair. I'll move this edge. Okay. So here is a single polygon with, how many points is that? 9. A 9-point polygon. Lightwave hates these. Because it'll eventually start drawing them wrong, and it'll start making your Boolean operations much more complicated and all of that. And if I was to drag this guy over here, what the hell is going on? What is this madness? That's because Lightwave doesn't really know what it wants, what you want it to do with the polygon that you're making. It doesn't understand. There's a way out of this problem. Look at it wireframe mode here. It does understand triangles and quadrilaterals, and you can easily triangulate, or triple in this case, any polygon that isn't already a triangle by hitting Shift-T. And it'll just build triangles the way it thinks is the easiest, and it makes everyone's life a lot easier. That appears under multiply triple, but Shift-T is the combination. But anyway, when you are making a polygon from scratch, you can use the points tool to do it. But, why? When you can use the pen tool. Pen tool is rather easy, tremendous. Now, beyond that, we get into curves. Now, I told you that whole scary thing about subdivision earlier so that I could make the curves conversation easier. The sketch tool, for instance, is you're just going to click and drag, and you do a thing. Ta-da, dunk. Now, what you've done right here is actually, you only designed a guide. You have not made geometry yet. You have not made points that you could use to make a polygon out of. These aren't points. This is a spline. It's different. Even though it's sort of drawn the same way on screen, it's a different thing. And you can tell by going into points mode, just pick one of them. If this was done with points proper, the shape, and I can see where the point lines are, the shape would look more like this, right? It would be a little bit more jagged. The smoothness is basically, this line is sub-D'd. This line is doing the same intelligent smoothery that a sub-D object will do. And it's doing this basically just to be able to, you can control it easier this way. This is the tool Spline Draw, or Sketch, or Spline Draw, are the tools that you'd use to like sketch a logo. Like if you were importing a particular company's logo, you might want to do the outline in some sort of a spline world first before you actually committed that to being polygons. That way you can conserve your polyline. Spline Draw is using the same technology, only it's click as opposed to drag. Spline Draw is very much like the pen tool in Photoshop, if you know it. It's basically going to do its best to average out the curve as you do your thing. If you go into the numeric panel, N, and do closed curve, it'll close the curve. And it allows you to make edits like this. When you hit enter, you don't actually make geometry. You're just making this spline that you can still control like a spline. You couldn't make this into a polygon because right now it's nothing but this spline. It's this line in 3D world that doesn't do anything. It would render, but it would render as nothing but a line, and it looked more like a glitch than like something you did on purpose. If you wanted to, though, you could actually make this into a polygon, and often you do. That's typically the point of using Spline Draw. But once you say you got your Spline Draw or Sketch or whatever, your spline of some sort to where you want it to be, now you have the ability to bake it, more or less, into being actual points. Now, because these splines can be intelligent about the way they curve, there are fewer points here, and it's tracing this curve with math internally. It's not actually showing you the points that are on that curve. When you make it into a polygon, it will actually draw it out that way. So look at how specifically this curve is working. It's only I only have to deal with one point to do the whole curve, but the curves that are inherent are actually going to be a problem when I make it a thing. When you go Control D, you take that from being a spline and an intelligent curvy sub-D line to actually being just points. And we have actually used the spline, which was just these few points, Control D, to make a polygon. This now will render. This is a polygon, and it's no longer a line. It was drawn from that line, but it has gone out of being intelligent sub-D world and is now the hard line that it's displaying before us. I mean, you get the idea. And if I wanted to, I could probably subdivide it, right? Because subdividing. Yeah, no, because see this little red guy down here? Only faces with 3 or 4 vertices can be converted into subpatches, sub-D. You can't do it. You can only sub-D things that are triangles or quadrilaterals, like I said. But that's what the Spline Draw tools do, and they're very useful, especially, like I said, for doing anything with logos. But also, and perhaps more importantly, are the text tools, which are in motion graphics all the time. There's about 17,000 different ways to add text to Lightwave, because over the course of Lightwave's history, all the different users have come up with their own particular individual plugins that everyone liked so much that it got folded into the software proper. And now there's like 9 ways to do every single thing in Lightwave, which is kind of confusing, but you get used to it. And you'll find the tools that you like the most. For instance, there's nothing wrong with text. Just clicking on text and hitting in gives you the basic tool that you need right off the bat. So let's see here. I found, let's see, if I do Top Gear, I can change my font, I can do whatever I want to. And when I click on the axis, it's just changing which axis it's flying into, you can see. You can, justify it however you want to and all those things and adjust the kerning the way you'd expect. And when I hit enter, it makes a sound. When I hit enter, it commits it to polygons. Each one of these things is individually a polygon, and oh god, look at how many points on this damn poly. What do we got here? Looks like we got, wow, one polygon with 831 points. Okay, whatever, if you say so. But this will render. And now we have some text. Pretty cool, right? Now, I want to, before we move on, show you one other thing. Let's go into, instead of text, let's go into multi-text. When you do this, what you end up doing is you click on this guy and you edit it. Now, I've added Ryan versus Dorkman 2 in Bank Gothic. And I want to show you what happens. And you know, if I click on this guy and add a thing, you know, thing, I can just add multiple lines of text as opposed to doing it at once. I don't use multi-text that often, but I know that if I use Bank Gothic and write Ryan versus Dorkman 2, you'll see a problem. Yeah, that K, huh? Weird. Let's go ahead and lose all of these other polygons real quick and focus on the K. Just, all right, what's going on? This isn't even a particularly high poly thing. This is an 11-point polygon. I mean, there's nothing to it. It's really straightforward. And yet, it draws wrong. This is just one of the problems you run into with having polygons with too many points. You want to be careful about it, because Lightwave doesn't panic, but, you know, be cool. By taking this polygon and doing the Shift-T triple trick, solves the problem. You know, you just make it into triangles. Again, that's multiply triple or Shift-T. But all you're doing is taking what was this problematic polygon with too many points, Shift-T, and just making it into triangles. And Lightwave knows what to do with triangles. Hooray! Back to this guy. Now, one of the things you're always going to be doing with logos like this is extruding them. And that takes us handily into the next tab up top. We've gone from create. We're going to deal with modify in a second, actually. We're going to go to multiply. And what we're going to do now is just extrude it. The Extrude Tool does this. I'm going to do Shift-E, but you could just click the button. Hold Control and drag it out. Look at that. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Because what Shift-E is doing, extrude, it's easier to see in wireframe. What I'm doing is making a copy of that polygon, all of them in this case, and dragging it back and just keeping the connective tissue. Basically, it's just doing a copy, but I'm keeping the connective tissue with it as I drag it back. And it, you know, makes for this wonderful 20th Century Fox extruded text look, right? Good stuff. And when you're using all tools in Lightwave that this is applicable to, you know, if it's something that can be locked down, holding Control will lock it to an axis. I can go up, and it's going to lock it to an axis. Of course, now it's just smearing it, and the same with, you know, the wrong direction. But holding Control will lock it to an axis. If I don't hold Control, I can do that. But holding Control is usually the way to go. And like I said, extrude, extrudes. Copies the polygons, drags them, and leaves the connective tissue. Now, extrude is used all the time. You'll use extrude a lot. But I used extrude first to talk about what happens when you get a little bit more complicated with it. Let's make a ball. Okay? Now, extrude is copying out a polygon and dragging it and keeping the connective tissue. You can't really change the shape of the resulting polygon. It's just the same one. Bevel, or the B, just hit B, lets you do stuff like this. It's extruding it, you know, just the same way. But it's also letting you control what's ultimately happening to the shape of it. Now, Bevel is one of the handiest damn tools you'll ever see in your life because it makes modeling really quick. If I just select any polygon, hit B, and start dragging, I've done that. Now, the tool is still active. I left-clicked to do that. But if I right-click now, I just make more Bevel. Right-click again. Right-click again. And I've started building out with one tool. And of course, now if I went into sub-D mode, I end up with a ball with a wiener, but whatever. Bevel. It's basically extrude plus, you know? Now, what happens if I want to do that to a bunch of polys at once? I'll select a bunch, hit B. Oh, well, damn. I mean, I get this, and that's cool. That might be a good way to add a lot of detail quick if I wanted to just, you know, make something look a little bit busier somewhere in the far distance where no one's going to notice that it's just a bevel. But it doesn't let me move the whole thing in one chunk at once, kind of like I was expecting it to. If bevel is extrude plus, multishift is bevel plus. Multishift is right next to bevel. It's in the same stack, multishift. And what that does is it allows me to, you know, do the usual things that I can do with bevel, like, you know, drag them out and all that stuff. But with this group polygons checkbox, now I have that. Now I can actually move the entire thing as one big chunk, you know, or not, depending on what I want to do. But basically, multi-shift is bevel plus, and bevel is extrude plus, and this is the way that things like this go. And you end up with some complicated goodness right off the bat. And now, if I go into set D mode, I've created a ball with a rash, I guess, whatever. So that is multi-shift. Now let's talk a little bit about the basic modify tools. We're in multiply now. That was, I took you, because I had to show you the text, and extrude follows handily and then bevel follows handily. We've gone down that line a little bit. Let's go back a bit and talk about modify. Modify is where you're going to find move and drag and rotate, twist, bend, scale, shit like that. Now, when nothing is selected in Lightwave, everything is selected. If I was to go into move mode right now and just drag this around, without telling it what to drag, I'm dragging all of it. If I actually just selected one polygon, I'd just drag that one polygon, right? I should tell you now, selection is going to be something we're going to go into in a second. But so you know, clicking selects, right-clicking. Oh, I thought, wow, shit. Clicking selects, the backslash key deselects. On my keyboard, the backslash key also has the question mark on it. It's the one that the bottom is to the left and the top is to the right. That slash will deselect. Now, when nothing is selected, everything is selected. When something is selected, that's all you're moving. The move tool is T, and it simply allows you to click on something, select it, hit T, and you drag it around. There's also, even in something as simple as move, goodies to be found in the numeric panel, namely fall off. Point radial is the one that I find the most useful. There's fall off for many of the modify tools, and this is how fall off works. I go to point radial, and what I do is I just kind of right click somewhere, and it allows me to draw this circle. That's basically outlining the fall off. At the very center of that circle, well, 100% of the command will take place. At the edge of the circle, 0% of the command will take place, and it's going to fall off on its way down. So instead of moving the whole thing at once, now it's just going to move. Come on now. It ain't helping me here. Man, it's a bummer. Make me look like an idiot. Oh, oops. I had caps lock on. Never mind. New ball. It's all cool. God damn it. You're killing me here. There we go. It does that. I had to go into points mode. I was in polygons mode. In points mode, you can do this because, you're moving the points. But as opposed to moving the whole thing, it does a little fall off thing. Allows me to make cool little bulgy shapes. This is a very handy way to do rather complicated looking sculpts really quick in Lightwave. Is when you're the simplest damn tool there is, move. If you go into a point radial and just set your fall off, do whatever you want to do, kind of drag some points, do a drag, make it bigger, right click drag, left click drag, all that stuff, piece by piece until you've made what looks like a deflated soccer ball, I guess. Whatever. Sub D. Whatever. That's all the fun you can have with move. I just wanted to basically show how to use point radial because that's rather important. And I should turn it off because unless you turn it off, it will be on point radial mode until you do turn it off. Now, move requires selections. If you do move without selecting anything, you have actually sort of informally selected everything. But you can't use the move tool without turning it on and selecting it. Drag differs from move in that way. Drag, just turn it on and shit. In point mode, drag, you just click a point and drag it. There's a little safety zone underneath your cursor, and if the point below it is under it, you can just click on it and drag it around. I don't actually find myself using this tool that often, but it's a really basic, useful tool for getting to understand the program. Move, you have to make a selection. Drag, you can just click and drag. Hooray! Now, rotate is easier to see with a gear. Let's make a gear here. All right. Now, obviously, rotation is going to happen constantly in this program, and the tool for rotate, you click on it and hit N, gives you the options for which axis you're going to rotate it on, and fall off, if you wanted to rotate it a little bit more in the center than on the outside, but trust me, that'll start looking like a corkscrew really quick. The most important thing to know about the rotate tool is the center is important. Right now, I have centered by hitting F2 this gear because I want it centered. And if I was to rotate it right now, I would want it to be rotating around the center. Yet it is not set up that way. Right now it's set up to rotate around 100 millimeters off to the X, 460 millimeters up and 930 millimeters back. So if I was to rotate it, 15 degrees right now, by typing in 15 and hitting apply, it's going in this weird, actually that's kind of cool, but anyway, it's doing the wrong thing. F2 to center. So if I zero this out, I'm rotating now at the, in the center, or on the y-axis, or on the x-axis. Crazy. Anyway, so let's delete this guy. Now, bear in mind, with most of these tools, once you turn them on, you can key it in with the numeric, but you can also, just hit Y, which is the rotate tool, go into Y and just, rotate, willy-nilly with my mouse. As with everything else, if you, do it in control mode, you will be doing it just on a particular axis, depending on where you're looking. But that's rotate. This is a perfect example right here, because this whole face of the gear is one polygon. This is what happens when I hit tab to go into sub-D mode now. See how the sub-D surfaces are fine, but it doesn't actually do that to the other polygon, so it disconnects in a rather unflattering way. Anyway, so there's that. And that basically brings us up to the more complicated shit. So we're going to stop there, and as of right now, you have enough knowledge to really hurt yourself, and I encourage you to do so. You know how to set up Lightwave, to get into Lightwave, to control Lightwave, and how to use the tools present to start creating and altering your creations. And I hope that you fiddle around with it for a little while before we move on. Obviously, you can just jump to the next tutorial, but with this information, you now know enough about the Lightwave ecosystem to use it. And I it's fun. It's cool. It's something that I think you should do, because I can show you how to use all the tools all day long, but it's not as fun as making a bench, So figure out something to make it, and come back to the next tutorial when you want to move forward. And by the way, just because I haven't told you how to use a tool in the create, modify, or multiply tabs doesn't mean you shouldn't, get yourself into trouble. Go for it. Play with them. Because they all work pretty much the same way. Once you've understood this much, the rest of them, you'll understand how they work. Hooray! I'm running out of breath, man. See you in the next video.